In today's episode, we're going to talk about a creature from the creepypasta characters. This creature is found in abandoned places like forests and cemeteries, and its specialty is targeting children, chasing people, and terrifying them. And if one day you happen to be in a forest, be careful, because that's his favorite place. In today's episode, we'll learn the true and sad story of Slender Man and what made him become Slender Man. Don't continue the episode unless you feel your heart is strong. The story began on June 9th, 2019. There was a contest on one of the websites on the internet. The contest was about bringing a photo and trying to edit it using Photoshop. And no matter what the edit was, it had to look scary, terrifying, or realistic. One of the people who participated in this contest was named Eric Knudsen, and this person submitted 2 pictures. But these 2 pictures were not ordinary at all. The pictures showed children playing normally, and behind them stood a person wearing black clothes, with no facial features, staring at the children in a terrifying way. Each of these 2 pictures had a message written underneath it. Pay close attention to the message under the second picture. It was a very scary and realistic image of Slender Man standing behind the children. The message beneath it said, "One of the 2 pictures was recovered from the Sterling Library before it was burned, and before the 14 children disappeared at the hands of Slender Man." That was the exact message written under the second picture. And the shocking thing is that the library mentioned in the message was actually burned down in real life, exactly 1 week later. And this made people very surprised by what happened and caused a big controversy. This meant that the picture had a story behind it, and that picture belonged to a girl named Mary Thomas, who also disappeared on June 13th, 1986, and no one knows anything about her. Since then, the legend of Slender Man began to spread. Movies and games were made about him, and they achieved very high revenues. The legend became so widespread that it led to real incidents in America. One of the shocking incidents was about 2 girls, both under 12 years old, one named Anissa and the other named Morgan. These 2 girls did something unbelievable for children their age. They kidnapped their friend and took her into the woods, stabbed her 19 times, and killed her. When the police arrested them, the shock and surprise was that they said Slender Man appears to them and told them to do this, and that they had to obey him or else he would kill them. From that point, we ask, who is Slender Man? Where did he come from? And why doesn't he have a face? Let me tell you the story. The well-known story that people tell about Slender Man is that he was a normal young man like everyone else. He was excellent in his studies, and after he graduated from university with high grades, he got a job and decided to look for a life partner. He eventually got married and had a very beautiful daughter. He was extremely attached to his daughter and loved her to the point of madness. But unfortunately, many problems started between him and his wife, and these problems led to a separation. Because of all the arguments, the mother decided to prevent him from seeing his daughter, and it ended with him no longer being allowed to see his daughter at all, and he had to accept and live with that. Because of the deep sadness he felt over what had happened, he could no longer continue working, so he lost his job, and his life became very miserable. After some time, he decided to adapt to the situation and start a new life and look for work. But unfortunately, he couldn't find any job. No one was willing to hire him. He searched a lot but couldn't find anything. At this point, Slender Man reached a state of despair. The sadness overwhelmed him so much that he started thinking about ending his life. These thoughts grew stronger, and he eventually decided to write a suicide note and end his life. But suddenly, while he was writing the note, he got a phone call. He decided to answer it, and he found out it was the manager of one of the companies he had applied to. The manager told him, "Get ready for an interview tomorrow." Slender Man was so happy with the call. He felt like there was still hope. The next morning, he woke up excited for the interview. He got his things and documents ready and packed them in his bag. While preparing his papers, his eyes fell on photos of his daughter. When he saw them, he felt deep sadness because they were the last thing he had left of her. He put the pictures in his bag, got himself ready, and headed out for the interview. On the way, Slender Man felt like he might be late, so he decided to take a shortcut. And this road was close to a forest, and he had to go into it and cross through it. He really did enter the forest, and as he was walking through it, a group of guys on bicycles passed by. These were the kind of guys who made fun of people and liked hurting them. When they saw him walking alone, they decided to mess with him and take his bag. One of the guys actually got close to Slender Man, grabbed his bag, and ran off. Slender Man was shocked and started running after them as fast as he could. All he cared about was getting his bag back because of the papers inside, and more importantly, the photos of his daughter. Despite all his efforts to catch up to them and yelling at the top of his lungs for them to stop and give the bag back, none of them listened. Instead, they laughed at him and mocked him even more. Slender Man kept chasing after them until he found himself deep in the forest, and the boys all started to split up. Slender Man stayed focused on the guy who had the bag because all he wanted was to get the photos of his daughter back. He had already accepted that the job was gone, and now his only concern was saving those pictures of his daughter. Slender Man kept running after the guy with the bag, pleading with him at the top of his voice, tears filling his eyes, begging him to return the photos. He didn't care about the bag itself. But the guy just kept laughing and went further into the forest until he disappeared among the trees, and Slender Man couldn't see him anymore. He stood there in the middle of the forest, not knowing what to do, hearing the guy's laughter but unable to see him. In one last desperate attempt, Slender Man screamed out loud, "Give me back the bag. I'm willing to do anything you want." And right after he said that, he heard the voice of an old woman coming from behind him saying, "Are you sure you'll do anything?" Slender Man turned around, but there was no one there. Then he looked at the end of the path and saw an abandoned house. Something was pulling him toward it. Maybe he'd find the guy who took the bag there. Even though he was scared, all he could think about was getting back the photos of his daughter. He didn't want to lose her after already losing his job, because those photos were the last memory he had of her. Slender Man reached the abandoned house and then heard the old woman's voice again saying, "Go in." He responded, "Do you have the bag and my daughter's photos?" She said, "Yes, I have the bag and the photos. Open the door and come in." Slender Man was shocked when he stepped inside the house. It looked completely different from the outside. It was clearly a fancy house, and everything in it was valuable. But from the outside, it had looked abandoned. When he went in, he saw an old woman. Her face was full of wrinkles and she looked terrifying, definitely not someone you'd feel safe around. The old woman suddenly spoke and said, "If you want the photos in the bag, you better know that nothing comes without a price." Slender Man thought she wanted money, so he replied, "I'm unemployed. I don't have anything to offer you." She let out a wicked laugh and said, "Who said I wanted money?" Slender Man was confused and asked, "Then what is it you want in return?" She replied, "What I want is your soul." Slender Man was stunned by her words. He thought she was joking. Tears were streaming down his face as he said, "You want to take my soul? I don't even have a soul left. I've lost everything. My job, my daughter, my life. If you want my soul, then take it." He thought she meant she was going to kill him, but the old woman said, "Wait here for 1 minute, and I'll bring you the photos." As soon as she left, Slender Man started looking around the house, inspecting everything and muttering to himself, "What brought me to this place? She's definitely lying. There's no way she can give me back those pictures." He decided to leave the house, and suddenly the old woman came back within a minute, just like she said. Slender Man was surprised by her return, and she was actually holding the photos. When she put the photos in front of him, he saw strange drawings on them, covered with a lot of weird and mysterious writings. To the point the pictures no longer showed the details of his daughter's face. Some of the words written on the photos were, "Run, you can't catch us." Like the men were mocking Slender Man on purpose just to make him angry. And yes, Slender Man lost his temper and got really mad. He asked the old woman, "Where are the pictures of my daughter? Give me back the photos without any writing on them." She replied, "Don't forget we have a deal. I give you the pictures and you give me your soul." Then she placed her hand on Slender Man's neck. That's when Slender Man got angry and pushed her hand off forcefully and told her, There's no deal between us. Return the pictures just like they were before." The old woman's facial features changed and became really terrifying, and she stared at him with a scary look. He told her, "I don't want anything from you, and I'm leaving this place." He turned his face and was about to leave, and suddenly he was shocked that he couldn't see anything anymore. He started talking and screaming, and then he realized he couldn't even speak. The old woman told him that she had taken his eyes and his mouth too. It turned out that this wasn't just some normal old woman. She was actually a witch, a very dangerous witch. She told him, "What good is your nose when you have no eyes and no mouth?" Then she put her hand on his nose and pulled it off too, until Slender Man's face had no features at all. At that point, Slender Man couldn't believe what had just happened. The old woman said, "We had a deal. Do you want me to take your soul?" In a moment of sadness and despair, Slender Man said, "Yes." And with a deliberate motion, the old woman placed her hand on his heart. Slender Man felt a deep coldness. After she lifted her hand from his heart, she said, "I've taken all your emotions except revenge. You no longer feel anything now except that you have a desire for revenge on anyone." At that moment, Slender Man was feeling very angry and wanted to take revenge on the men because he had become this way because of them, no matter what. The old woman asked Slender Man not to appear in front of regular people because that would cause him problems. Slender Man left the old woman's house, and he had strange powers. One of those powers was that he could hear all the sounds around him from any distance. He could influence the things around him. And people who saw Slender Man would feel headaches and dizziness, then they'd lose consciousness. His most important power was that he could affect electronic devices and mess with them. And because of his strange powers, Slender Man, after he left the old woman's house, was able to track the voices of the young men who were the reason for what happened to him. And he was able to reach those men to get revenge on them. That day was the first disappearance of 4 men. After that, stories of disappearances started to increase from time to time, and that was the story people kept telling about Slender Man. Because of how much the story spread among people, the legend became something real between them. Some people started creating images of him using Photoshop, where he was holding children's hands. Up to now, there's no evidence that Slender Man exists, but there are clips that spread on the internet. And honestly, when I saw those clips, I was shocked and couldn't explain them. I'll leave it up to you whether you believe them or not.